Hi everybody, I'm Vanessa with Ronquita Design, and today I'm going to show you how to make a utensil wrap. Reducing waste and sustainability is really important in both our business and personal lives, so we like to use these when we go camping and on our road trips. They're nice because you can take your own silverware, your reusable straw, and even chopsticks if you'd like, and you can use them along your trip. Just wash them and keep them and use them as you go. Today I'm going to show you how to make that. For this project, you'll just need a few items. You'll need fabric for your outer, fabric for the lining, and I'm also choosing to use batting. Batting is optional. I just like to use it because it does add a little bit of weight to the roll. If you don't have batting in your stash, do not feel like you have to go purchase it. For this project, it is optional. You'll also need a basic sewing kit. You'll need some ribbon for the ties. If you don't have ribbon, you can use shoelaces or yarn, whichever you have. You'll need either pins or clips, your shears, and a fabric marking tool like a pen or chalk. All right, so now let's get started. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the dimensions of your pieces. All of your fabric pieces will be the same size. I cut my pieces 20 inches by 12. You can certainly make them narrower or shorter, but I like to cut mine 20 by 12. Your ribbon or your yarn, whatever you're using for ties, I cut mine at 18 inches. Again, you can cut them longer or shorter if you want. So when constructing the pattern, you need to make sure that you sew right sides together because we will be sewing and then flipping. Fabric with a print on it will be easy to distinguish between your right side and your wrong side. This is the right side of my fabric. This is the wrong side. Now putting it together, it's important that you put it together in the right order. If you're using batting, place your batting down first because your batting needs to be on the outside before you sew, so it'll end up on the inside when you're finished. Batting down first, your outer fabric on top, right side facing up. If you're using a directional fabric, you'll need to make sure it goes this way, the top to bottom. Now you'll take your lining piece and you'll place your lining on top of your outer fabric. So now we're going to sew everything together, but before you do that, you need to make a mark for your opening. At the bottom, you need to place 2 lines. You can use your chalk marker or your fabric pen. Just put them in the middle, just a few inches of space between them, and then you'll be sewing all the way around, leaving this space open. Do not sew between here. This is what we're going to use when we turn and flip. The seam allowance for the project is going to be 1/2 inch all the way around. Now it's time to sew. So now we're going to sew all the way around, leaving this space open between the 2 lines. One thing that's important to know is, again, your fabric hangs off the left side of your machine, and that means you're going to start at the line closest to you, so you go all the way around and you'll end at the line furthest away. Our seam allowance is 1/2 inch. So you'll start at this line. You do not need a backstitch because this area will be closed later, and sometimes it's a little easier to flip if you don't backstitch, so your stitches can kind of open a little bit. Okay, now that we've sewn all the way around, leaving this space open, what we need to also do is first cut our corners. So when we have 90-degree corners, we need to cut diagonally, not cutting your stitches. That helps relieve any tension when flipping, so that way you have a better corner when you flip. So you're going to do that on all 4 corners. And now we will flip it right side out. This is a nice time to check to make sure you don't have any holes. If you're still new to sewing and you're not sure if you caught all the fabric pieces, this is a good point to check. Poke out all your corners with your finger. You can also use a chopstick or something else that's kind of blunt. Knitting needle, but nothing too pointy because you don't want to poke through the fabric. I just use my fingers. All right, so right now you should have something that looks like this. Here's my hole at the bottom. So the reason we leave the hole in the center is because by stitching here, the seam allowances make this opening want to already fold in the right amount. So that way we don't have to worry about tucking and measuring. It kind of does it on its own. So now I'm going to go to the ironing board and give this a quick press. Okay, so now everything is nice and pressed. I also went ahead and closed the bottom hole. You can see here that I stitched the entire length of the roll instead of just the hole. This makes it more consistent and looks nicer. And you also want to do it at a little bit smaller of a seam allowance at about 1/4 inch to make sure you catch the seam allowances there from the hole. So the next step is to actually make our pockets. So we're going to fold up wrong sides together, wrong side facing up, so your lining should be facing up. Folding it up like this about 6 inches to give you a pocket. So this is about 6 inches wide, so I'll just use this as my measurement here. Okay, so it's about 6 inches there. You can go higher or lower depending on if you change any dimensions. Okay, so we've got 6 inches up here. So now we need to make sure we put our ties in. Our ties are going to be placed in between here on one side. It doesn't matter which side you choose as long as they are both on that side. You'll have the edges in here. And you can clip them or pin them, whatever you choose to do, to keep them in place as you stitch. The next step is to mark your pockets all the way through, however wide you want them and however many you want. It's up to you. Then we'll stitch on the lines for our pockets, and then we'll stitch at about 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch on the edge here to keep this down and to catch our ties. I usually start about 1.5 inches from the edge, knowing that I need a little bit more room because of that closure. So it's about 1.5 inches from the edge there. Then I do about 1.5 inches from the edge on the other side. And again, your measurements can be tailored to what you need. So the distance between theirs that's left is a little under 8 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide that in half. 4 inches, and then I'll just divide it in half again. So now I have my marks for stitching. I'll be stitching on all of these lines, and then on the very edge of my roll here. It's really important to make sure you have your ties clipped in because we need to catch those in there. Okay, so now we're going to sew again. So now we're all done. You just need to finish loading up your wrap, roll it up, tie it together, and you're done. Now you're ready to take this on all of your trips. For more information on sewing, follow Ronkita Design on Instagram and Facebook, and for more information on my sewing classes, go to ronkita.biz.